If you're considering moving to the Costa del Sol, but you haven't quite worked out yet how to earn a living, then Gibraltar could be the perfect option for you. Approximately 15,000 people a day cross the border from Spain into Gibraltar to go to work. I was one of them for over a decade. I lived in Spain, I enjoyed the sunshine and a much lower cost of living, but earned my income in Gibraltar where the salaries are that much higher, taxes are typically lower, and the culture is this fascinating mix of British and Mediterranean life. In this video, I want to share with you what it's really like to work in Gibraltar. I'll give you the good, the bad, and everything in between, from border queues to salaries, work culture, benefits, and just the daily life. Here's the honest truth from someone who's done it for over a decade. Most jobs in Gibraltar are finance, online gaming, IT, customer service. There's, of course, jobs in hospitality, construction, and administrative work also. But what's interesting is because Gibraltar is such a small place, there's a shortage of skilled workers. So in turn, what that basically means is that if you've got experience, you can usually find and secure a job relatively quickly. Now, during my time there, I saw people from all over the world, British, Spanish, Portuguese, Eastern Europeans, Asian, all working side by side in this very international little hub. Now, the big attraction, of course, for those that are crossing the border every day from Spain into Gibraltar is the pay. Salaries in Gibraltar are much higher than they are across the border here in Spain. To give you an idea on the kinds of salaries that are achievable, office workers typically get around £1,800 to £2,500 per month. Skilled professionals in finance or IT can easily achieve £3,000 to £5,000 per month. And even in hospitality jobs, you will find that the pay is that much higher than it is here in Andalusia. Then on top of that, of course, you are entitled to benefits. So I'm talking paid holidays, sick pay, and many of the companies there also provide private health insurance. Now, because you're obviously receiving a salary in sterling, that sterling is the currency in Gibraltar. If you're living in Spain, you've obviously got the added benefit of the exchange rate, which goes in your favour, therefore making your money go even further. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about tax, because that is one of the areas that confuses people most about living in Spain but working in Gibraltar. Now, when you work in Gibraltar but live in Spain, you're classed as a cross-border worker. So what that means is that your income tax is paid in Gibraltar, and that's usually around 20 to 25%. It is on a sliding scale, and of course that's relative to how much you earn. Now, Gibraltar's tax rates are much lower than Spain's, which is one of the big advantages of working there. But here's where things get a little bit tricky. Spain and Gibraltar do not have a direct double taxation agreement like Spain does with the UK. So what that means is if you are permanently living in Spain, the Spanish tax authorities will consider you a Spanish tax resident. Now, what that means in theory is that Spain can also tax you on your worldwide income, including what you earn on Gibraltar. Now, in practice, most cross-border workers don't pay tax twice, but you do need to declare your Gibraltar income on your Spanish tax return every year. Now, the Spanish tax system will usually give you credit for tax already paid in Gibraltar, so that you won't end up being double taxed. But what you will typically find is that you will pay the difference. So let's imagine you're paying 25% tax in Gibraltar, and let's imagine your tax rate in Spain is 30%. Typically, you will be asked to pay the 5% difference. However, over all the years that I've been doing this in Spain for 10 years, I would say that typically most years, I've probably paid a little bit less than 5% in tax back to the Spanish government. Now, this is one of those grey areas where getting advice from a gestor or a tax consultant is 100% essential. The last thing you want is to get caught out with an unexpected tax bill a few years down the line. And that tax bill won't just be unpaid tax, it will be fines, and it will also include interest. So what could start out as a simple €500 tax bill could end up into thousands. So this is very important. So yes, Working in Gib can be financially rewarding, but make sure that your paperwork and your tax residency status are clear from day one. Okay, now let's talk about the commute from Spain into Gibraltar, because this is something that you can never plan. And I genuinely mean that. After 10 years of going backwards and forwards almost daily, you cannot guess what it's going to be like. One day you could have a 5-minute border queue, easy, you're straight through. The next day it can be absolute chaos and you're stuck for hours. So do take that into consideration. I did it for 10 years, and trust me, it does become part of your daily routine. You know, podcasts, audio books, a cup of coffee, a book while you're waiting, those things can help to pass the time. But it's certainly one of the negatives of crossing that border every single day. Another thing as well is that you'll be amazed at the different modes of transport people use just to try and save that bit of time waiting at the border queue. I'm talking many people going by car, thousands going by scooter, thousands walk across the border, and now we have the dreaded e-scooters that are absolutely everywhere taking over the roads there. But yeah, the border can be a big problem at times. I've had several occasions over the years where I've spent 5 or 6 hours trying to get out of Gibraltar back into Spain. Doesn't happen often, but it's certainly something you do need to consider. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the working culture in Gibraltar. Now, for me, I think the culture there for work is truly unique. Now, on the surface, it's this mix of British structure but with Mediterranean pace, as I mentioned earlier. It is professional, but it is so much more relaxed than London or any other big city I can think of. Now, over the 10 years I worked there, I noticed many things that really stood out. Now, one of them was a lot of the jobs in Gibraltar are filled internally, but mainly through connections. So jobs are not always based on who's best qualified for that position, but more often than not on who knows who. It's a small place and that network culture runs deep. I've also seen people get roles multiple times over the years that honestly, I don't feel they would ever have landed in the UK. Now, that's partly because, in my opinion, Gibraltar has such a limited pool of available workers. So companies often just need to fill the gap quickly. So they take whoever's available rather than waiting for the perfect fit. Now, some of the things as well that I've noticed in the workplace people get away with has constantly shocked me. Things that simply wouldn't fly in a London or UK environment. But again, it comes down to the size and the nature of the job market there in Gibraltar. Everyone knows everyone, and sometimes, in my opinion, again, standards bend to make things work. Now, that said, it's not all negative. The smaller environment also means it is easier to foster relationships and move around within companies and find opportunities. And if you've got a good reputation and a solid work ethic, then you'll go well there. Now, property in Gibraltar is incredibly expensive. You're basically talking London prices for a flat. And for that reason, many people will choose to make that cross-border commute every day. Now, most of the workers that are living in Spain tend to live in pretty much the same 3 areas. La Línea de la Concepción, which is the town directly opposite the border from Gibraltar. San Roque is also popular, and I would say probably the most popular is the area of Manilva. Within Manilva, you've got a very small village around 5 minutes up from the coast. And you've also got the town of San Luis de Sabanillas and Puerto de la Duquesa, the port of Duquesa. All of these are very expat-rich areas. Many British are living in these areas and working in Gibraltar. All of these areas have public transport links, basically a bus that will get you to the border every single day. But one of the things I've noticed over the 10 years that I was working in Gibraltar is that many people take up these car sharing options. So if you are considering the move to these areas and working in Gibraltar, that is something I'm sure you can get involved in. Also as well, the other thing to factor in is that you get a lot more space in your property in Spain than you do in Gibraltar. So that's obviously a benefit. And all of this while still earning a British salary and all the benefits that go with that, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, so let's shoot through the pros and cons, starting with the pros. So first up has to be the higher salaries that you receive in Gib compared to Spain. You would never earn in Spain what you get in Gib. So that is a massive pro. Secondly is the lower taxes that I mentioned earlier. Thirdly, I would say has to be all the benefits that you can get from employment in Gib. I went through them earlier. Paid holidays, sick pay, private health insurance, discounted gym memberships, and of course a rock solid employment contract. On top of that, I would say another big pro is the fact that it is relatively easy to find work in Gibraltar, especially for skilled roles. And then lastly is the fact that if you choose to live in Spain, you're earning in pounds but spending in euros due to that exchange rate, which is typically always in your favour. So now let's list the cons. What are the cons? Well, undoubtedly, the first one has to be the border queues. You never know if you're going to be waiting 5 minutes or 5 hours. So that is something you are going to have to contend with. Secondly, if you do choose to live in Gibraltar, you've got those expensive property prices I mentioned earlier, not that dissimilar to, say, London flat prices. Another con is the paperwork and the tax complexity if you are living in Spain but working in Gibraltar. But as I said, hire an accountant, let them deal with all those tax affairs for you, and you'll be absolutely fine. And then another one of the cons, especially for me, is simply the slower pace. If you're used to big city business life, that does take a lot of getting used to. Basically, I think what I'm trying to say is that working in Gibraltar and living in Spain is a trade-off. You do get that financial security and a great lifestyle, but you have to accept that daily commute and potentially the bureaucracy that goes with it. Okay, so what's my conclusion after all of this? Well, I worked in Gibraltar for 10 years and overall it was a really positive experience. It's a unique place, British, Mediterranean and international all at once. If you've got skills, motivation and patience for border life, you can absolutely build a good life here, earning in pounds, living in Spain and enjoying the sunshine. But it isn't a fairy tale. You have to work hard, you have to plan smart and accept that every lifestyle comes with trade-offs. If you've worked in Gibraltar or you're thinking about it, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your experience. Anyway, my name's Dean. This is the second chapter. If you've enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free to do. It doesn't cost a penny, but it really helps this small channel to grow. Anyway, enjoy whatever you're doing for the rest of the day, and I'll catch you in the next one.